All right. Welcome, welcome. We're going to go ahead and dive into our speed reading crash course. This is a crash course. So this is going to be my crash course of the crash course. So this is basically going to be the nuggets. You guys don't have to go through this crash course. I went through it at like 2 a.m. A couple weeks ago. But I'm really excited to tell you about it because it's going to set you up for success and just learning more from what you read. You can use these skills in school and whatever you do. So I'm going to go over several topics. I'm going to tell you what the topic is and then the notes that I got from it. So I'm just going to dive right in. So the first thing that I learned was just how to stay on top of your reading. And what I learned from the speaker was that you want to keep an Excel sheet going. And on the top of your Excel sheet or Google sheet, whatever you want to use, you want to put your goal for the year for how many books you want to read. So this won't fully apply to like what we're doing for a book club, but this is something that you could start doing if you want to read more on your own. But on the top, you put your goal of the year. How many books do you want to read that year? And then you want to put rows of seven books at a time. So basically, the guy that I was reading listening to the crash course of, he reads 300 books a year. So that's going to be based off of the 300 books a year. But what he does is he has 7 rows of books at a time. After he reads 7 books, then he just goes back and reviews the notes from his books. So the reason why is because when you go back to the notes, like those were your main takeaways and your main things that you took away from the book. So that would help you further, reinforce what you learned. But also in that spreadsheet, that's where he put all of his books that he wants to read. So, whenever you hear a talk and you hear a speaker, just for example, we listened to Mel Robbins earlier, and I wrote down the book, Stop Saying You're Fine. So, that would be something I would do and put on that spreadsheet so that I could track, okay, that's a book that I'm excited about versus like, what should I read next? And then you know that you're excited about reading something later. So, but I do want to make this a quick video just so everyone can watch in a short period of time. But basically, every night, the night before, you want to put your book on your desk. Why? Because that's going to reduce decision fatigue. And just like I've talked about before with decision fatigue, like getting your clothes out for the next day, filling your water up before you go to bed, the less decisions that you can make the next day, the more you're going to accomplish that day because you're making less decisions and you won't overwhelm yourself. But basically you want to have a list of your favorite books. And he mentions that books are tools. You can't read it once and know it forever. You've got to, go back and really, talk about things and review them again just to be able to learn the most out of a book. He also says knowledge must constantly be improved or it vanishes. So once you have your list of 30 to 40 books, I'm going to say it again. Knowledge must constantly be improved or it vanishes. But yeah, once you do have your list of 30 to 40 books that maybe you want to read or you're excited about, you get to see, your progress. What have you read and what are you going to read next? And progress keeps you motivated. Just like Tony says, Tony Robbins, Tony who? Progress equals happiness. And when you get to see what you've read, you're like, wow, like I've actually read a lot of books and I didn't read any before this. But I'm going to dive into a topic here. This is how to double your reading speed. How to double your reading speed. Number 1, read with a pen in your hand. It makes your eyes work. It makes reading active. You're in the zone. It's always better to read on paper than on an electronic book. But if you have to read electronically, like let's say you're reading for school or you have an online textbook, use a mouse. Use your mouse and have it follow the words. The next topic, he says, don't just read, think. Don't just read, think. It's better to read a little and ponder a lot than to read a lot and ponder a little. It's better to read a little and ponder a lot than to read a lot and ponder a little. Don't just memorize the facts. Stop and think if something like hits you. It's like, oh, that's a nugget. That's a takeaway. And then if it hit you like that, it means you got to start thinking a little bit deeper. How can I apply this to my life? What does this mean? How does this tie into other books that I've read? what that will do, that'll enforce both books at a stronger level, which means you're going to learn better.
Will you say those questions again after how can I apply this to my life?
Yeah, so don't just read, think. And if something hit you, think to yourself and write down, how can I apply this? Or what does this mean? How does this tie into other things that I've read? He also talks about, so this is next topic, how to take notes in a book. So I was always like, oh, like I'm not going to take notes in my book. I'm going to maybe have like sticky notes because like, what if someone wants to read it later? He says, no, take notes in your books. These are your books. If you lend a book to someone, you probably won't get it back. So have them buy the book. I don't remember how many books I've not gotten back because I've lent out. But this will also allow you to keep your books personalized. What you want to do as far as taking notes, number one, underline the key points. And whenever he underlines, that tells him in his brain, this is a system. Underlining means this is what I really want to extract from this book. He also utilizes brackets. Brackets are for paragraphs that he really liked. So underlining for key points, brackets are for paragraphs you really liked. And then also writing in the margins. Writing in the margins is important. And he's got a 3-star system based off of how important things are. So he'll put 1 star if it was just something that he liked. 1 star for something that you like. 2 stars means you really like and you really want to take away that thing because it really resonated with you. And then 3 stars is if it's mind-blowing. It's a mind-blowing idea that I definitely want to take away and use over and over and over again in my life. So again, 1 star was something that you liked. 2 stars you really liked and you really wanted to take away. 3 stars, mind-blowing idea that you definitely want to take away and use over and over and over in your life. And if there were key pages in that book, he says fold the page. Like dog flap the page. Dog ear flap, whatever it's called. Because when you go back to look at the key points, you'll see, oh, this page was folded. I should probably look at it. How to take notes on the book. So I taught you to take, well, not me. I taught you from my teachings or from my learnings. Now I'm going to teach you how to take notes on the book, not in the book. So as far as taking notes on the book, you guys know this for sure, but hearing it again is definitely going to be important. But write something in your own words. Why? Because it'll help you learn it way better. Write down the 1 to 10 main points, the golden breakthroughs. He says write them down on the title page of the book. So that when you look at that book later, oh, these were my 10 main points. These were my 5 main points. These were my golden breakthroughs. He says do not use a notebook. It's a tool. It's not a textbook. Books are tools. It's not a textbook. You don't have to take notes in a notebook. Write directly into the page. Write directly into the book and write your takeaways on the title page. You can also write down ideas and realizations from reading the book's title page after looking at them later. So that's why you want to do that on the title page, because you could just open to the title page. Oh, wow, these are the things that really hit me. Maybe I should look back at them again. You guys will like this quote I'm going to have after I introduce this next topic, but how to permanently ingrain what you read in your mind. You guys want to permanently ingrain what you read? Yeah. So this is the quote.
Wait, what do I label this? How to permanently ingrain
what you read in your mind. How to permanently ingrain what you read in your mind. So he says a single golden idea thoroughly applied will revolutionize your life. A single golden idea thoroughly applied will revolutionize your life. 100 mediocre ideas that you do nothing with have zero impact on your life.
True.
It's not about quantity, it's about the quality. I'll say it again. A single golden idea thoroughly applied will revolutionize your life. 100 mediocre ideas that you do nothing with will have zero impact on your life. Again, not about quantity, it's about the quality. It's kind of like thinking about it. He made an example, an analogy to when he played football when he was a kid. He said football is not only football as a kid. What football taught me as a kid, hard work, teamwork, dedication, sportsmanship, discipline. That's what football did for him. It didn't just teach him how to play football. So that's like a similar idea. You don't want to just have 100 takeaways. Have that one golden takeaway that you can thoroughly apply that will revolutionize your life. And then he said, well, he asked, why do we read? We read to make our best lives possible. We read to make our best lives possible, which allows us to make society better, which allows us to make the world a better place, to make a difference. We make our lives better to be able to make the world better. And then he had some bonus tips in this one video I watched. Taking notes on audiobooks. Ooh, I know we got some audiobook listeners. I'm an audiobook listener. Taking notes on audiobooks. So if you're reading or if you're driving, or not reading, if you're running, if you're running or working out or you're driving and you can't take notes, he says, pause the audiobook and repeat the takeaway out loud in your own words. He said he'd literally pause it, and as he's driving, he's restating what he just learned in his own words. A couple times. Why? When you formulate your own words, it's going to stick way better. And then when he can write something down, he writes it down in a notebook. That exact thing he said. Doesn't have to be exact word for word, but in his own words. Or if you can read and have an audiobook, if you want to listen to an audiobook and have the physical book with you, take notes in the book and just follow along. You can find the audios on YouTube for any book. You don't need Audible. You just YouTube it. Why audiobooks? And what does he do audiobooks on? He does audiobooks for things like biographies. Why? Because you've got the speaker talking about their tonality at certain points in their life, which is going to be a lot more impactful than you just reading the book on your own. Yeah, we could read a biography about Tony Robbins, but imagine Tony reading that out loud. He could bring out his tone, his passion. Tony, yes.
Tony!
Yeah, exactly. And the one plus to audiobooks is you can increase the speed. Put it on 1.5 times the speed, 2 times the speed. And if you're reading with the book too, and you're following along with your pen, easy peasy. He says audiobooks are bigger books, biographies. Tony Robbins in 2 times speed. Yeah, that'd be wild. But what books do you never want an audiobook? Books that you never want an audiobook are books that would take you a short time to read. Books that would take you a short time to read. You never want to audiobook those. Why? I don't know. That's what he said. He's read a lot of books. This guy reads 300 books a year. I think he's got a couple good things to say. How to read technical books fast. Next topic. How to read technical books fast. So let's say you're taking a class on like computer science, or it's a textbook, and you got to read this technical book. Or let's say you just want to read a technical book just because you're curious. I don't know, maybe. He says, instead, get a general idea of the overall picture. And that you should only go in depth on the parts that you can apply. So I don't think that would work as much for textbooks, more so if you're reading a technical book for fun, if you ever do. But with the technical book, instead, get a general idea of the overall picture. You should only go in depth on the small part that you can apply. And when you're ready, you can go back to that resource later, maybe when you've gotten more knowledge on the topic and you understand the topic more and it would make more sense. Then you go back to that resource later. He gave an example. He was reading a book on venture capital. It was a 200-page book. He read it in 20 to 30 minutes. Not like word by word, page by page, but he got a general idea and went in depth on the parts that he could understand. And he's going to go back to the book later when he understands more. This next topic is called the art of non-finishing. The art of non-finishing. A couple of these things that I was learning from this guy's crash course, I was just like, really? But then I was like, this guy's read a lot and he knows a lot. So listen with, an open mind. He says a lot of books have a diminishing return. Sometimes it's worth stopping and doing a quick preview on the rest. I mentioned that some books are better left unfinished. He says this isn't something that you want to do all the time. But if you notice that there's a diminishing return by doing your quick preview, you'll find that. Go ahead.
What does he mean by that? Diminishing return.
Like you're not gaining as much value because they're just telling stories that kind of like help you understand it more. But if you already understand the concept, then you don't need to read the stories again. You guys will like this next one. Where to read. It can't be in a comfortable place. He said, not a bed or a couch. Why? Because of the concept of domains. Your bed is made for sleeping, for rest. So what's your brain going to think if you're reading in your bed? It's going to be like, oh, this is just for fun. I don't need to remember much. I'm just going to read. But if you're actively reading, he says, if you want to take away the most out of a book, sit in your chair by your desk. And you'll actively go through the material and you will be in the zone. And you'll take away a lot more. So you don't have to like find a way to write in the book on your hand or on a pillow. And you'll be able to take active notes and be actively engaged, and you'll get a lot more out of the book. And then he had a question. This isn't really a topic. You don't need to write this down. Should I read on my Kindle or iPad? He says no, because Kindle is page by page. You will read much faster on paper. Next topic. How to read so quickly. How to read so quickly. This is how he reads quickly. How to read so quickly. You want to preview the book as soon as you get it in the mail. What he means by preview, go through the table of contents, table of contents, and he says flip through it and read random parts to get a basic idea of what the book is like. No, you can't do that with like a book that's like a nonfiction book or a fiction book, because then it's going to be like, oh, like I don't want to know like what happened at this part. This is more so for like those personal growth books. So flip through it, read a random part to get a basic idea of what the book is like. Then have a plan for how you want to read it. And then you decide, do I want to skim by dipping into interesting sections, or do I want to read this book from cover to cover? For book club, we're going to read cover to cover. People will have some takeaways that maybe you didn't have, and you're going to have some takeaways that other people didn't have. If reading cover to cover, sit at a desk with your pen in hand, write a guide to reading. Every time you finish a line, go to the next line. Go to the next line. That's up to you. If you think you might erase, then pencil, but I prefer pen. Reading is being able to go through a book and get everything out of it. That's what he defines as reading. Reading is being able to go through a book and get everything out of it. He mentions that time can be spent learning more things that are more valuable. So if I already understand this concept and that's what the rest of the book is on, do a preview. Are there any new things that I can learn? If yes, keep reading cover to cover. But if no, next book. Ooh, this is why we're doing book club. This next section, how to learn even better. We're going to learn even better. How do you do it? Talk about it out loud. Teach it to someone else. Remember it better. Remember, these are my notes of the crash course. So, might be like, what? Ooh, huh? So I can go in detail if needed. But talk about it out loud, teach it to someone else, remember it better. So what I like to do a lot is before Patty started going into books, like reading personal growth books, and she never wanted to really read again after high school, I would start just teaching her what I'm reading. And what did that do for me? It made it click twice. And then also increase the amount of interest for the other person. Maybe they want to start reading because of what I'm learning. If it's an audiobook, pause it and talk about it in your own words as if you're teaching it to someone else. So just like we mentioned before. After you're done with the book or a reading session, say it out loud in your own words, what you learned. That will immediately create synaptic connections in your brain. You don't need to write down all that stuff, but just know that it will make the book easier learned. You'll learn it better. Learned, yes. So after you're done with the book or a reading session, say it out loud in your own words, what you took away. This next section was about organizing his bookshelf. So when you start building a massive library, you'll know what to do. Or maybe you have a lot of books, you just don't know what to do with them. And this is going to be a big, long quote. You do not need to write it down, but I typed up the whole thing for you guys. But listen. Great, that's fun. But you should be extending your stay among writers whose genius is unquestionable. Deriving constant nourishment from them that you wish to gain. Anything from your reading that will find a lasting place in your mind. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. People who spend their whole life traveling abroad end up having plenty of places where they find hospitality but no real friendships. The same is the case with people who never set about acquiring an intimate acquaintanceship with any one great writer, but skip from one to another, paying flying visits to them all. Again, I don't want you to write this down, just listen. Nothing is so useful that it can be of any service in the mere passing. And if you say, but I feel like opening different books at different times, my answer will be this. Tasting one dish after another is the sign of a fussy stomach. And where the foods are similar and diverse in range, they lead to contamination of the system, not nutrition. So always read well, tried authors. And if at any moment you find yourself wanting a change from a particular, go back to ones that you've read before. I thought that was fun. Anyway, you want to see reading like an interview. See reading like an interview. You know, like make those mental decisions in your mind on which books I'd want to go back to again and again. That's why it's really important to have that Excel sheet. Because then you could like rank them or put how much you like them. But in terms of organizing his bookshelf, top, put the biographies, middle, technical books to master, and then you organize them by topics.
What about the bottom?
That's where you put all your cool figurines and collectibles. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I wrote it down. But next, this one's going to be, you guys will like this one. I know, we're going fast. How to save hundreds of dollars on books. Whoa, we want to hear that. How to save hundreds on books. He's like, buy or borrow. Always buy. And he says, on Amazon, always look at the used options. The books that are like new or acceptable, 90% of the time do not have anything written in them. They just look a little worn. And you could save a lot of money that way. You can find some of your favorite books for a couple bucks. Sometimes it'll be like $2 plus $3 shipping. $5? What? Crazy. But I'm gonna pause the recording. I'm gonna stop it and I'm gonna re-record another one because this next part I know is gonna be a section that people wanna replay several times. Stop recording.